Now God says a president that I will bring into the White House. They will say he is ungodly. He does not know God. But
we got breaking news. We got breaking news coming in. Shots fired.
Even as Jesus disguised himself for the great feast, so I have disguised this man's heart. And when he comes to the White House, not only shall he be mine, but he shall pray as a man that has never prayed in the White House.
We need to go live right now. Shots are still continuing to be fired. He's giving a thumbs up, everybody. He's giving a thumbs up.
For the Lord says there will be no unnecessary stuff, but there will be things that men shall question. Fear not, for you shall sit in that seat, and suddenly my spirit shall come upon him and baptize him with a fire and with anointings. Spirit of the Lord.
Started, and it's really about language, what we say out loud and the consequences of those. You called your opponent an existential threat on a call a week ago. You said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye.
Donald Trump and the Maga Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. But there's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Too many see the protests as the problem. Please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Go to the Hill today. Get up in the face of some Congress people.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
Running away from Donald Trump, I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
When they go low, we can.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump. And that's
an actor dressed to look just like President Donald Trump as he's assassinated on stage. Look as his character is stabbed to death. And there's no mistaking the Trump connection.
This is what Biden said at a rally in Michigan last week.
Donald Trump is a convicted criminal. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Trump is a threat to this nation. But Trump is even more dangerous now. No, I'm serious. He's unhinged. He's snapped. He says if he loses, there will be a bloodbath. Trump said if he wins, he'll be a dictator on day one. He means it, folks. We're not going to let that happen. Over my dead body will happen. America needs to wake up and realize that Trump and his mega Republicans, what they're trying to do. We're going to join them, we're going to engage them, and we're going to stop them.
The left spent years laying the groundwork for violence against Trump. Watch.
He is not only unfit, he is destructive to our democracy, and he has to be eliminated.
How dare he say the things he does? Of course I want to punch him in the face.
Right.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
And they haven't been subtle about it. 2 months ago, the New Republic published a cover story depicting Trump as Hitler. You can't call Trump Hitler and then wish Hitler a speedy recovery. So save us the empty thoughts and prayers. Now, we don't know if this guy was motivated by anything Joe Biden and the Democrats said, and we probably won't know anytime soon, but it was only a matter of time before someone acted on this looming threat to democracy. The rally bloodshed only came to an end after a Secret Service guy took out the shooter. But what if Democrats had their way and Trump had no protection? A few months ago, Benny Thompson introduced a bill intending to strip Trump of his Secret Service protection. Quote, the Disgraced Former Protectees Act would terminate Secret Service protection for individuals who otherwise qualify for it upon sentencing following a conviction for a federal or state felony. This measure would apply to former President Trump.
Who wrote a letter calling for one state Democrat, Jasmine Crockett, to resign. They say it's because she co-sponsored a bill in April that would have removed Trump's Secret Service protective detail. And that bill was introduced with veteran Democrat, or by, Benny Thompson, who yesterday was defending the bill. He said in a statement, "My bill would not have affected the Secret Service's presence during this tragic event." The bill aims to automatically bar Secret Service protection to anyone sentenced to prison for a federal or state felony conviction. Well, that's why that bill slid in, because it was right around the time of the 34 convictions against Donald Trump. Not only would it have affected that, it affected him. It would have affected him. It was aimed at him.
Benny Thompson was also the chair of the Jan 6 committee, I'll just point out. But I wonder if they feel the same way about Hunter Biden and pulling his Secret Service detail away, as he's a convicted felon. So we didn't see any push there. Look, this was partisan politics.
Well, he still has that protection.
Of course he does. Yeah. Of course he does. This was partisan politics at its worst. At a minimum, they should publicly apologize. They should call President Trump and apologize. I think we should put censure on the table personally for these members. These are people's lives on the line, and the detail should be commensurate with the threat. As members of Congress, if we have our lives threatened, we can go get additional security. But this is part of the vitriol and the demonization of President Trump personally and his MAGA supporters that came directly from President Biden's mouth all the way through the Democrat Party. And clearly one 20-year-old was so convinced that he tried to kill him.
After Trump was shot, one of Benny Thompson's staffers posted this: "Don't miss next time." And not even 24 hours after the assassination attempt, the left's managed to blame Trump for almost being killed. Watch this.
We were just looking back this morning at some of the things that former President Trump has said. He warned last March of potential death and destruction if he were charged by the Manhattan District Attorney. Our country is being destroyed as they tell us to be peaceful. Trump in January warned of bedlam in the country if the criminal charges against him succeeded. And of course, in March, he said, "Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That will be the least of it." He said he was partly joking and that was taken out of context. But those are indeed his words. And you have heard it from supporters as well. And supporters are certainly in some parts angry. And let's remember January 6th.
The language Trump uses is not nearly as dangerous as the language and the stories that are all fake that the left tells about him. And we're saying Biden's incompetent. That's what Republicans say. That's it. We're not calling him an evil Nazi who will be dictator for life. But CBS is convinced that violent conservatives are the real problem here.
You're taking me to exactly what I've been underscoring and is frankly very concerning in the rhetoric we are seeing at this hour already. We are seeing some Republican lawmakers come out with statements directly drawing a line between the shooter, whose name we do not know. We do not know if he's a lone actor or with somebody else, but drawing some connection to the government. We have nothing to base that on at this hour.
This kind of rhetoric has a nexus to violence. We saw that on January 6th. We saw that in the attack against Nancy Pelosi's husband and multiple other instances.
This is why Americans don't like the media. How are we supposed to stop this from happening again if this is the message being broadcast to the nation? Former Attorney General Bill Barr joins me now. We don't know the motivation of the shooter. We know the shooter wanted Trump dead. We know that. But why can the media call Trump a Nazi who's going to imprison all of their children and expect everybody to all say, "Oh, this is a both sides deal"?
Yeah, I think this trying to pin down the precise motive and how much of it was mental imbalance or emotional imbalance and how much of it was political is a bit of a fool's errand. There's a mixture of things there. And the bottom line, I think, is that when someone is deep...
I've known Trump for about 30 years, so I'm watching a personal friend get shot in front of me. I mean, it was a very intimate moment for millions of Americans, and it was a providential moment. If he had turned to look at that big screen, and when he was turned, the bullet would have hit him here. When he turned back, it hit him here. That's how close he came to being killed. And I think we need to understand that this was providential, and he reacted appropriately. But I also will tell you, He has been vilified by Joe Biden and the Democrats and the left wing more than any president since Abraham Lincoln. And this was a political act. It was a deliberate act. And as you know, because we've talked about it off air, I've said for 4 months that when all the legal baloney fails and when they begin to realize he is going to win, that violence is the next thing because they're that desperate. And I think we need to understand, people in this country have got to decide, are we going to be Americans and talk with each other as Americans, or are we going to become two bitterly divided factions? And right now, if you read what Joe Biden said last night, he's clearly in the bitterly divided side. If he has to totally split this country in order to try to retain office, he'll, at least through last night, he'll say anything no matter the consequences. This is a very, very dangerous moment. And I also have to say, I think the President Trump's courage, and here I echo what his son Eric said, his courage at walking off with the bleeding and putting up his fist and saying fight, to remind the crowd that he was going to go on, and as our champion, he wanted us to go on with him. I thought that'll go down in history, and that will help define who Donald J. Trump is.
You know, I'm listening, and it just, I've known him 30 years like you have, Mr. Speaker, and I had a lot of the same emotions that you had at the time, and then when you point out very vividly and very accurately how close he was to being assassinated tonight, it is chilling. And this should transcend all politics.
And yeah, and remember that this is a Biden administration which, as you pointed out, has refused to protect Robert F. Kennedy Jr. even when his father and his uncle were assassinated. This is the Democrats in the House actually introduced a bill to strip Donald Trump of Secret Service protection. I mean, these people are crazy, and they are willing to do virtually anything. And tonight we were winded. This is not a game. This is not just politics. This is history. And the history of the United States will be written in the next few weeks between having a huge victory to bring us together and gradually disintegrating into a country that's at war with itself.